Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. We have a very special show today. The topic is Veterans, a Celebration of Service. Veterans, a Celebration of Service. We have a special guest. Before I introduce our guest today, let me remind you that we have this show is being shown on Facebook Live. You can find us at AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. If you haven't done so, I would ask if you wouldn't mind following our page and recommending it to others. Again, it's AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. We are very close to 2,000 followers, and it'll help us greatly if you can help us reach those 2,000 followers before the year is over. Again, the topic today, Veterans, a Celebration of Service. Veterans, a Celebration of Service. We are going to monitor the sound, making sure that everything is going well because this topic is very important. Let me introduce our guest, and our guest today is Robert Peralta Hernandez. Robert Peralta Hernandez. He is a past commander of Post 41. Robert Peralta Hernandez, past commander of Post 41. He's been with us before, and stay with us. It'll be a very, very important show. Robert, thank you so much again for always being willing to join our show. Welcome.
I welcome the opportunity. Thank you.
Very, very good. This month, the month of November, is Veterans Month. Veterans Month. And the 7th, correct? Or the 11th?
11th.
The 11th is Veterans Day.
Correct.
And November is also Caregivers Month. Mm-hmm. So November is a Veterans Month, you could say. So that's why we're having this month to basically thank our veterans, to celebrate the fact that they have served and are serving still many this country. And Robert Hernandez has served the country for many, many years. So we're going to be asking him some questions, and we will ask him also to share his experiences in military service. So I will start the questions, so Robert, first of all, as we said, tell us, if you don't mind, what is Veterans Day for you personally? Because I know the whole country, gets involved and pick this day particularly to celebrate and to thank veterans. You as a veteran, what does that mean to you personally?
Personally, especially at Post 41, it's an opportunity for us to gather again and share the camaraderie that we had while we were in the military. It is a day that we can acknowledge some of our fallen buddies that have either passed in battle or passed with time. And it gives us a great opportunity to thank some of the younger kids coming in now to take the place of a duty that's very fulfilling.
Good. And can you help us understand, because I'm sure that some people may be like me, that we need a little bit clarification. In this country, we have at least, I believe, 3 days where we celebrate, where it's a holiday related to veterans. What are those 3 days?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned earlier, Veterans Day, November the 11th, and there's also Memorial Day in May, which the difference between the two being we celebrate veterans as a whole on the 11th, and on Memorial Day, we celebrate those that have served and given the ultimate sacrifice is their lives. Mm-hmm. So it's those that have passed, and we try to acknowledge them on Memorial Day. The other is the 4th of July, which, because of the fact that we had battles won and we gained our freedom, so the 4th of July is the other. So those are the three holidays.
So 4th of July is independence, and obviously, the military is credited for winning that victory that gained the independence to this country.
Correct. That's correct.
Right. And then Memorial. Now, help me here. Is Memorial a specific day or?
Yes, it's on May the 30th.
So whenever it falls, if weekend or whatever, it's still the 30th?
I believe it rolls over to the Monday.
Okay.
If it falls on a weekend and it's celebrated on that Monday. Most service organizations, of which Post 41 is, will do certain things to acknowledge that Memorial Day. And Post 41 goes to St. Francis Cemetery. Mm-hmm. We place flags on each veteran. And then on Memorial Day, we go out and we do a rifle volley and sound taps for them. And we do that in two areas of the cemetery, in the south and in the north. So we acknowledge them in that manner, and then we go back to the post to remember.
Right. I'm sure that in your 30-plus years of service, correct?
That's correct. I had 4 years in the active Air Force and 30 years in the Air National Guard, the 164th Air Refueling Group out here in Sky Harbor.
In your years of, particularly once you've dedicated your life more to making a career after you went out, you participated in 2 missions, I believe they're called?
Correct. While I was in the active, the 4 years in the Air Force, I participated in the Operation Arclight, which was with the B-52s flying out of Guam, the island of Guam, over to Vietnam and blanket bombing. And when I joined the Air Guard, I ended up going to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, which was Desert Storm.
Mm-hmm. And you are Mexican, right?
Yes, 100%, both sides.
We have Alex Juarez, who has joined our Facebook page, and he's saying thank you for your service.
Well, I appreciate that.
And then I'll second that. Thank you, and thank to all the veterans for their service, because for me to be looking at you and just the brief, trajectory that you just described for your service is mind-boggling, because distance and time, it seems just from looking at you, it says, wow, you went through all that.
Yeah. I look back myself and I'm amazed, because I do have many, many pictures that I took. And
you mean while being there?
Yes.
Ooh, I hope I can get to see them one day.
Yes, I have some in Saudi Arabia, and I have some in Guam, and I also have some of our air refueling with the KC-135s, where we refuel aircraft in the air.
Wow. Again, thank you for your service, and thanks to all the veterans who are listening to this program and watching through Facebook. We will, advance in our conversation, and I think it's really good to have you. We've had you before, and I really like how you express and explain the experience of serving. And the show today, I'm not sure that I said it, but it's Veterans, a Celebration of Service. That's the title of this program today. Veterans, a Celebration of Service. Sometimes we use this phrase, a celebration of life, right? This one, I changed it a little bit, a celebration of service, because service is the key word for military.
Yeah, my understanding, in the past, I had looked up the stats on it, and I believe it's 2% of the entire population of the United States can have the label of veteran. To me, it seems a little strange, because to me, I see veterans all the time. You see veteran plates and all that. Well, that's my community. That's who I hang around with.
Right.
But I did not realize that only 2% of the population can call themselves veterans.
And so, briefly, we have about a minute. Mm-hmm. Who is considered a veteran?
One that has served in one of the 5 branches of the military, and completed and gotten an honorary discharge.
Can somebody that just goes to boot camps and is that a possibility of just going to boot camp and then that's it? Or
No,
if you go to boot camp, that's because you're going to do something else?
Not by choice. You go to boot camp to indoctrinate you into the military lifestyle.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with careers or anything. It's a physical fitness. It's a discipline, a military discipline, marching, and learning what it's like to be in the military.
Does that constitute you a veteran, or do you still have to kind of join the guard, or to make you a veteran?
Yeah, the boot camp is just an introduction into that military.
Right.
Once you get through that, and it's just the beginning of the whole process, you go into a career field.
Okay.
And you can go to a technical school. You can go to infantry. Jet engines is what I went to in Chanute, Illinois. And then that's your career starts.
Got it.
And a commitment in the Air Force is 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And if somebody after boot camp joins the Guard, that's still considered a veteran, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's take a break. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The topic today, Veterans, a celebration of service. We'll be right back. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection, a platform of AARP Arizona dedicated to educating communities, celebrating Latino accomplishments, and connecting communities of all generations. We have Robert Peralta Hernandez with us today. He is a veteran. He is a past commander of Post 41, and we will get to Post 41, promised. We couldn't do this show without talking about Post 41, but just be patient with us. We will make our way into that important topic of history of Mexican Americans here in Arizona. Very, very proud of that post. So, Robert, so we went and explained the different holidays. Can you briefly just mention the 5 branches? This is not a test, okay? The 5 branches of the military, right?
Sure.
That's what they're called, I believe.
It's the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. Mm-hmm. Now, each one of them have a recruiting station that if there is an interest of joining up, they can go to those recruiters and start the process.
Got it. So each branch does its own recruiting, and each branch has, I have to believe, a function in service to the country that varies from branch to branch, right?
That's correct. You know, there are support groups. Myself, growing up as a kid, it was always a military was carrying a gun, boots on the ground, and not ever realizing that there's actually support activities, much like the Navy and the Air Force. And mine was the B-52s when we were aiding the Marines and the Army in Vietnam by doing the blanket bombing.
Got it. And, sometimes when we think of veterans serving, it seems like what comes to our mind is going out into missions and getting a rifle and engaging in battle. But obviously, the service that the military personnel, men and women, offer is beyond just going out into missions, correct? Can you tell us other ways in which military personnel engage service in the community?
If you take a look at a base, it's self-sufficient. It has hospitals. It has what we call a chow hall, a restaurant. They have support services with for families. I mean, it's self-contained. You could shut the gates and survive for a very long time. You have administrative people, you have technical people, and it goes on and on. Now, myself, I was in a jet engine, so I was supporting the aircrafts. The aircrafts that I worked on were B-52s and KC-135s.
So how about in the community when disasters happen, for example? Are those also considered services that?
Correct. The Guard, the Air Guard, and the Army Guard fall under the state that it's located in. They can be activated by the state for any kind of crisis. I believe the helicopters went up north to drop hay for some of the Native Americans, farmers that were out there for their livestock, and floods, and we don't get to see much of that here, but you'll see military dispatch. I think Katrina had a lot of Army that was deployed over there. Within their state, they're activated by them.
Yeah. Fires, I suppose.
The state.
With fires, do you think that in California with the fires they've had experience, the Guard may have gotten involved or not necessarily? It all depends,
I think
if
you notice in the news, California is asking the president for support.
Okay.
And that would be, I'm not sure what they're utilizing their Guard units for over there right now. It may be that they're overwhelmed with that, and so they're asking for active military support, which is also an option for the active duty.
So service goes beyond missions in war, if you will.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Well, let's focus a little bit on you, Robert Peralta Hernandez, because I've gotten to know you a little bit, and there is a history of service in your family. Can you kind of take us through? I think from your grandpa, right?
Correct.
Your tata.
Yeah.
If you can take us through that family tradition of service.
Sure. That my tata was my dad's father, and he was in Chihuahua and fought for Pancho Villa, and we happened within the family somewhere. I don't have to have it, but I did see it. He has a discharge paper signed by Francisco Villa, so he was a captain under Villa, and he was in his teens. After that, my father was in Signal Corps, and he fought Japanese during World War II, and he was in New Guinea on an operation there. My father's brother, my uncle, he also was in the Army and fought against the Germans during World War II. My brother was in the Marines and joined the Army Guard and was deployed during Desert Storm at the same time I was. He was on Riyadh, and I was in Jeddah. So we have a long history. My brother-in-law was also in the Marines. So we have a very long history of military.
Do you have children that are joining the service at all?
No, I had a daughter that went to boot camp, and they found out she had asthma. It wasn't real bad, but it was enough that they disqualified her, so they sent her back.
Tell us a little bit about that. So then if you have some physical limitations, they might not take you.
Correct. Correct. Usually that's on the onset. It wasn't discovered until she was in boot camp there. But when you go to enter, you have to take a physical as well as an aptitude test to see whether, you're physically fit or mentally fit to continue on into the military. But, and I, not too long ago, I read in the military website that they've decided that asthma is not going to be a criteria anymore. But she's already gone on, had a child, so it's a little late for her. But no, none of my children, and I have 4 daughters and two sons.
Yeah. So you actually saw war in 2 occasions, correct?
Well, I was deployed to Guam, which is not in country, and I'm considered a Vietnam era vet.
Okay.
Because I wasn't in country. In Desert Storm, I was in Jeddah, and I was in country, and we refueled the fighters over there. And the worst that I saw myself were the overheating of our engines because of the temperatures over there were causing a problem with our refueling the fighters. But the actual battle, no. My brother, my father, and my uncle, they did.
Yeah. However, I have to believe that you have seen your peers, the friends that you know. This can you take us through at least to some degree of the PTSD syndrome? You know, that the challenges that veterans face after they come back.
Yes, my brother experienced that. He was, as I mentioned, during Desert Storm in Riyadh, and they were out in the desert. He was driving the trucks out there. He came back and didn't realize he had it, and ultimately we went to the VA. I tried to get him some help, and they discovered that he did have post-traumatic stress. I heard a speech by a post-41 member, a Medal of Honor recipient, Vargas. He once said, "Don't tell a Marine that he has a post-traumatic stress disorder, because they don't have disorders. They may," he said, "they might have post-traumatic stress, but it's not a disorder."
I understand that the numbers are pretty high on veterans that are suffering from PTSD and other conditions, correct?
Correct. You know, it was called shell shock. It was called battle worn. It's always been around. It's taken a new title, but it's always been somewhat ignored until now, that our suicide on veterans is so high that they're paying a lot of attention to it and giving it its due. You know, I personally, just the hours and the stress of having to be places when I, wasn't ready to be there, but it was nothing dramatic like my brother saw and my dad and my uncle.
So you actually saw the PTSD in 3 members of your family. Mm-hmm. How is in the home front? I mean, what is that experience like? Do they need care? Because ARP is very, very much involved and interested in advocating and supporting the caregivers in general, but very specifically, or more specifically, for veterans.
I was most closely involved with, and still am, with my brother. As I mentioned, they never gave it its due. As a Mexicano in the barrio, I came from a dysfunctional family, which was rather common, in the time. I never alluded it to my father having experience, because he was in battle. He was laying up a wire on the signal corps on a pole, and he got shot at, hit the pole, and he fell back and broke his ankle. So, he was in the midst of all that, and I'm not positive about my uncle, but he came home, and what he did is what you hear a lot of people doing now, veterans, is drinking. And it was somewhat common in our culture at the time.
Right.
So it was really blended, and you didn't know what it was, but he would never talk about his experiences.
I don't know if you can answer this question, but I'm still going to ask it. Do you think that the culture can play a part positively in the handling of PTSD when you look at different cultures? Do you think that the Mexican-American culture may, because of the family closeness, friendships that we experience, do you think that can help to cope with it better?
I think it works both ways. I think the culture right now, we're more sensitive to that fact because it's become aware. In the past, it was, I believe, I grew up old school, I always say, and my father just was my father, and he did what he thought was right.
But firsthand, you've seen it. You've seen the effects of it.
Right. I did with my brother primarily, and but he's doing a lot better now, and he's gotten the help he needed, and he's retired as well. So and we meet for lunch every so often, and he's doing a lot better.
We have to go on our second break, but just in a general, what's your sense about the status of veterans? Are they in experiencing challenges these days in a concrete way?
Well, yeah, I believe it's a little. Well, they're getting their due. Veterans are getting their due now. They're recognizing the problems, much like post-traumatic stress, and they're recognizing that their families have to go through all of what a veteran has to go through practically. And I think, and within the Mexicanos, we're very close knit, and we keep to ourselves a lot. So sometimes it works against us, But families that I've known are very supportive of their veterans coming home.
Good. Let's take our second break. Stay with us. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The topic today is Veterans, a celebration of service, specifically for this month of November, where we celebrate the Veterans Month and Veterans Day. So stay with us. We'll be right back. This is, again, AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The topic today, Veterans, a celebration of service. And we have veteran Robert Peralta Hernandez. He's a past commander of Post 41. We'll get to Post 41, promise. I just have one more question, then we'll get to Post 41. Robert, would you mind sharing with us the experience of Latinos, Mexican Americans in missions? Is there times where that culture is still there, and do you share it with others? How is that, culture element in the field?
Well, growing up in the valley here, and there were certain things we knew we could do and couldn't do. So it just became the norm. We couldn't go across Van Buren, or we couldn't speak the language in school because we had to learn English. Well, when I went in the military, it was kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. We'd get together, all the Mexicanos, and we start to speak, and we get reminded that we couldn't speak English. But
you mean Spanish or English?
Spanish.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't speak Spanish. We had to speak English.
In service.
Correct.
We were there.
Correct.
Oh.
So, and to go on further, when we worked all together and we were deployed, you didn't recognize the different cultures because we were there to support one another to get the mission done. So you kind of forget all that and go forward and get the mission done. But there were times, like in holidays, that we would gather together, and that's when we would share our cultures. As Christmas, some of the guys would make tamales and share them with people that never knew what tamales were. Tacos, empanadas, that kind of stuff.
You actually cooked?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we would do that. That was many years ago, and I've even forgotten myself. But yeah, and then it was a share of the different cultures that we had. It was more of an interest instead of a discrimination at all. There was curiosity as to, what kinds of celebrations we did, what kind of food we ate, and that kind of thing. But once the mission started, all that went away, and we started working as a team. And that's part of the military offers the young generation, is to show them how to discipline themselves and work together.
Wow. So that's an amazing training that you get to be a team player.
Correct. And that even begins in the boot camp. Yeah.
So obviously, I have to believe that the missions, the exercises, and the messaging, right? I'm sure that you receive a lot of messages from the trainers.
Oh, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move now to Post 41. I think it's we don't want to end up with no time left. So in Phoenix, Arizona, there is such a thing as Post 41. And everyone in Arizona, if you're listening out there, you have to know that there's a Post 41. And I personally, in AARP, we have had the honor of hosting several events. Actually, on December 4th, we are going to have our end-of-year celebration in collaboration with LULAC. So stay tuned. Hopefully you can join us. My question is, what is the significance of that post? What is the story behind that post?
I'm fortunate enough to have been able to bridge the gap between the Vietnam vets and World War II vets and the Korean vets World War II vets were the ones that established Post 41. There was a misnomer that it was created because of discrimination actions in other posts and all that, but not really true. Post 1 was actually where Ray Martinez and he was one of the founders of Post 41. He was a member of Post 1, which is on Van Buren and 7th Avenue. Post 41 is on Grant and 2nd Avenue. It's just down the street from it.
Wow.
But what Ray Martinez recognized was that Hispanic or Mexicanos' GI Bill rights weren't being awarded to them after they were earned by their declining to sell homes on the other side of Van Buren, on the north side of Van Buren. There were Hispanics there, but any new buys, they would not honor it. So he took that battle on, and realizing that he was going to have to take that battle on was outside of the Post 1, that they were more into the programs and efforts of the American Legion itself. So Post 1 actually hosted a charter meeting, and thanks to Dr. Pete Demas, I have the handwritten minutes of that first meeting where Post 1 sponsored Post 41 in efforts to get their charter and establish the post home. The post home didn't come for a couple of years, and there's a long story on that, but it was fondly referred to as the Mexican Post.
So how do you think Post 1 took it, the fact that you wanted to do a separate post?
You know, it would, obviously, they supported it because they actually had the National come down, and they had a meeting at Post 1 in efforts to get enough people to end up with a charter at 41. So they supported the effort, and that's my guess because I wasn't there. As that actually happened 2 years before I was born. So but thanks to Dr. Demas again, he shared a lot of that with me because he's a member as well as his father.
Is your recollection that after they built Post 41, that the GI Bill issue that they had got better?
Oh, yeah. There's actually a white paper written by Christine Marin that kind of outlines some of what transpired in that time. They realized that they were up against a law that they could not deny, the mortgage companies and all. And that was a big feather in their cap. And that's how we ended up getting tied in, we being Post 41, with the Broadway pool issue, and that's, I think, why we were recognized as a Mexican Post.
What is that issue, if you can briefly describe it?
It wasn't that far afterwards. I don't recall the exact time frame, but I do have the paperwork on it, and I have the whole story. Again, Christine Marin happened to have gathered all that information. Her father was an 8th grade teacher at Lowell School, and he was my 8th grade teacher. And she had that interest, that whole barrio, the Marco de Niza and the Grant Park and all that. That's one of the things about Post 41. Not only do we have the camaraderie of all of us being veterans, served on different branches, but many of us also grew up together.
Amazing.
So we're a very tight group. I right now have at least 4 or 5 guys that I was in the 8th grade with.
Amazing.
So.
And that you served with and that gather.
We served at the same time.
Right.
But, most of them were Army.
Okay. Yeah. So, what are some of the highlights, special moments that have been experienced, lived in that post? I'm sure the getting it started, chartered, and then the building. I'm sure that when the building was done.
It wasn't uncommon at that time, from what I've read, that they were giving nonprofit organizations and military leases of I think it was $50 or $500 a year, something like that. I can't remember now, but it was affordable.
Okay.
But the post got built, and I have pictures of the foundation when they dug the foundation and all. We had support from Barry Goldwater. He was a member of Post 41. I had support from Adam Diaz, who was the first Hispanic councilman, and happens to be my uncle and godfather as well. And
Diaz?
Yes.
What, is your tío?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. His granddaughter is very involved in the community, Lisa.
Of course. Lisa Urias.
Yes.
Oh.
She's my cousin.
Wow, what a small world.
It is a very small world.
Yeah.
But we have deep roots here, and a lot of it came from the military. So, and Post 41 is sponsored many things, scholarships. We have an honor guard that recognizes funerals, gives the last honors to veterans that pass away now.
If you're listening out there, and you've never been to Post 41, make it a point. I think anybody can just go in, right?
Well, there's actually a museum if you coordinate it with the commander, who happens to be Luis Hernandez.
Hernandez, yeah.
And they can give you a tour of the place. It is a members-only club. Okay, but it was recently opened up. Membership was opened up to all veterans. Originally, it was just war veterans. You could have served and not served during a time of conflict and not been eligible to join. That just got overturned this year, and now all veterans can join.
Right. Stay with us. We're going to take our last break. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. We will be right back. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. With us today is Robert Peralta Hernandez. He is a past commander of Post 41, and a long trajectory of service to this country as a veteran, 30-plus years. And we're having just a great conversation. Let me remind you that this show is being done because on November 11th, it was Veterans Day. We are now at November 14th, but the whole month of November is considered Veterans Month, so it's still appropriate to say thanks and thank you to all the veterans who have served our country, and obviously thanks to veteran Robert Peralta Hernandez for the years of service. We have just a few more minutes before we have to finish our show. I am being told that the sound is not that clear, so please let me know if this is working better, whoever's out there. I think I fixed a little bit here. Hopefully that did it. So, Robert, let's move now to career paths. Let me, before we even go to career paths, are Latinos still joining the military service? Are they still picking or selecting this path in their lives?
I guess it's somewhat prejudiced because I'm surrounded by military types and the younger generation. I've even had little grandkids of mine tell me they want to join the service, but the actual stats, I'm not really sure. I see a lot of the younger veterans that come to the post anymore, they're all younger. Every time I look around, they all look like little kids, and I go, oh my God, I forgot I was 19 when I went in. But my assumption is that yes, it's a good way, it's a career way to go and get on. It gives them an opportunity, opens doors up for them. So yeah, I would think so.
So can you briefly relate how your path was? Because you made a career out of military. How did that happen?
Okay. When I went in, I took an app test. I qualified for 3 career areas. I ended up in jet engines. I went to Chanute, Illinois for my technical school, and I was stationed in March Air Force Base on B-52s and KC-135s. So I was a jet engine mechanic. Once I got out of the military after my 4 years, it opened up a door for me out at Luke Air Force Base, and I worked for Lockheed Aircraft Service. But unbeknownst to me, they saw I had aircraft experience, and they put me on the overall aircraft, not jet engines. And the question was posed to me, well, do you know how to read tech orders? And I said, yes. And they go, here they are. So I, because I got the mechanical training and the discipline from the military, I was able to fulfill that job. And as time went on, I moved into inspection, and I took I put in an application for an intern program with the federal government, Defense Contract Administrative Services. And because I was in the military, I was given preferential rating. Mm-hmm. So it gave me an opportunity there, and I ended up putting 30 years there as well, overseeing government contracts. So I went from jet engines into an administrative function on staff here in Phoenix that covered all of the state of Arizona, New Mexico, El Paso, and 5 states in New Mexico. We covered all the contracts for the military here.
Would you have imagined before you went into the service that this was going to be your career?
Not whatsoever. None whatsoever. I was just trying to do what everybody else was doing. It was join the military. It was during Vietnam. Everybody was going, so I joined, and unbeknownst to me, it opened up a lot of doors for me.
What would be your recommendation to young Latinos, Mexican Americans, in terms of how can they go in it, and if particularly if they want to make a career out of the military?
Well, any branch of service, there's different desires and different people, and the Marines have a very strong brotherhood, and growing up, a lot of the younger generation really look up to that. So that's great for them. There's others that prefer not to be the boots on the ground guy, and there's other branches of the service, Navy and Air Force, and there's support units. There's jet engine mechanics. There's just a slew of opportunities there. And for the younger generation that doesn't want to go right away, was the Air Guard or the Army Guard. You can join, and you do a weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. Although, as of recent, and I don't remember when this started, the Guard units have been deployed, to Iraq and Afghanistan, and that wasn't the case at the time. But barring something like that happening, you could do a military career by starting in the Air Guard and getting your education through the Air Guard and finding a career within the Air Guard or Army Guard. It's a great path to go through, and you learn some discipline and dedication.
So someone can just go to boot camp and then join the Guard. That would be one path.
Actually, that's a requirement to join the Guard. You still have to do a physical,
right?
Get a physical, and you still have to go to boot camp. You go to boot camp with everybody else. Even those that are going into the regular service, you go to boot camp.
Right. I have a couple minutes. I would like to read some statistics. AARP has this infographics that I thought it was very, very good. It is called Veterans in Arizona. We have about over 500,000 veterans who live in Arizona. 76% are 50 plus. Then we have 7% who are women, and 24% are 50 years or younger. 24% are 50 to 64, and 51% are 65 plus. So those are some of the statistics. Demographics, we have 29% who have a bachelor's degree. 29% of veterans, and this is in Arizona, out of that 500,000 plus, 29 have a bachelor's degree or higher. 5% are enrolled in college. 60, they have the medium income is $60,000 for veterans. 28% of veteran households have children under 18. 87% of veterans live in an urban area and 13 in rural areas. We have 87% are white, 5% African American Black, and 12% are Hispanic.
Wow.
46,000 businesses are owned by veterans. And then talking about health and wellness or well-being, 16% have a service-related disability. 16% of veterans in Arizona, of that 500,000, have a service-related disability. 6% are uninsured. And Veterans Administration, 30% have used the VA for health care. 30%. So these are some of the statistics related to the over 500,000 veterans who happen to live in Arizona.
Wow.
Now, to kind of end the show, so going back to what are the ways that the recruitment is done? Is this in high schools or in different events? How does that take place?
Well, if you'll notice, a lot of the high schools have ROTCs,
Okay.
and that is a starting point. Recruiters will even be invited to the schools to kind of share the kind of fields that are open and all. So, yeah, it starts in high school, and then I guess, I myself, I don't recall what drove me all of a sudden to go to the Air Force. I just happened to make that decision. I didn't even tell my parents. I just went and did it.
Right.
So maybe it's a choice that somebody makes when they come up against a wall in their life that says, okay, I got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a path that you can get paid, you can get your education, you can learn a trade, and it's one of the better ways to go, in my opinion.
Right. So you were saying that this is almost like a guarantee that you will be able to go to college, correct?
Yeah, the benefit is there.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to take advantage of it.
Right. So anybody can literally make a career out of the military service, correct?
Correct.
If you
Correct.
pass whatever requirements.
Yeah, there's a lot of requirements depending on the field you're in. Barring any medical issues, you can make a career out of it. And with 20 years and getting your retirement, that's a pretty good retirement at an early age. In the Guard, you have to wait until you're 60 before you can get your retirement. I believe that's the age. That's what I was when I went through. But it's full retirement. So it's a big plus, in my opinion.
So you would definitely recommend it.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah. One of the things that I would like to mention before we finish the show today is that November is not only National Veterans Month, but also National Family Caregivers Month. And this is a time to recognize and thank the more than 40 million family caregivers in the U.S. This November, we should honor and pay respect to both those who serve our country in uniform and the hidden heroes caring for our veterans at home. There are about 20 million veterans in the U.S., with the majority having served during the Vietnam era. More than 500,000 veterans live in Arizona. with longer lifespans and potential health problems stemming from their military service, our ability to provide adequate care for a veteran now requires more action and resources than ever. And this is where every AARP comes in. We are very, very much interested in finding ways to keep supporting, to keep thanking the veterans and supporting them, but also the caregivers. Because as you mentioned, Robert, there are many veterans who are suffering from the PTSDs and then what comes as a result of that, and they deserve all our thanks, all our support. So thank you again, Robert Peralta Hernandez, past commander of Post 41. Thank you for being on our show, and I'm sure we'll have you again. Thanks again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you for joining our show today. This concludes our show. We ran out of time. Thank you again, and see you soon. Take care.